Not.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that as presented.
Made in second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The minutes for.
Move for approval of the,
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made second, approve the minutes from May 2nd, 2023. All those in favor?
aye.
Public comments. Public comment. Please state your name and.
Alvin Smith for Snowmobile Council and ATV Council. Jay Luke brought up the thing last time we talked about taking a ride out on the Jack Pine and Charlie Loop. And I was just gonna see if you got anyone else want to do it besides Jay. And so you can take a ride on there and see what they do. I'm not sure what his grading schedule is right now because I just found out it was changed. So, but if you guys want to ride, just contact me and we'll try to hook you up. Thank you very much.
Can I contact you and we can coordinate it together?
Yeah, if you want. We'll try to, we'll figure something out this day.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, any other public comment? Then we have any received information, supervisors not seated in this committee?
Brad Olson, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Here today on two things, but mainly to speak on the resolution I've sponsored on Resolution 2023 on restitution court. I just think it's time. It's being done in other counties, and I think it's time that we start to put the victims first and make sure when restitution is ordered, restitution is paid. And it's simply asking the court to consider it. We can't force them to do it, anything like that. But just ask them to look into restitution court, which one judge currently is doing on a very, very limited basis. As long as I'm here, spoke with Highway Commissioner Norby this morning. And the Wisconsin Towns Association is running a pilot program that would remove the LRIP program for funding of roads away from highway county commissioners in a portion of the state in a pilot program, Polk County being one of them. And I guess I won't stand here and speak for the Polk County Towns Association that I am chair of, but I will speak for the town of Clam Falls myself, and what I believe is most of the towns within Polk County. We would be adamantly opposed to that. We as a Towns and Towns Association in Polk County have an excellent working relationship with our Highway Commissioner Norby, and we would very much like to keep that. I do fully understand that there are counties around the state where that is not the case, but in Polk County, we have a long-standing good relationship with the Highway Commissioner. And I believe we should keep that within Polk County. It has worked fine for years, and I see no reason to change that. Mr. Chairman and committee members, thank you very much.
Can we ask some questions, Mr. Chair? Sure. What's your just inside from your contacts and that? Who's sponsoring this or what's your outlook on it? You think we can keep it the same?
As far as changing the LRIP?
Yes.
It's the Towns Association. I, as chairman of the Towns Association, I have not been contacted, period. It was brought up in a meeting. Maybe Mo has a better recollection than me, but about a year ago, it was discussed when Mo was at it. And I would just say that WTA staff was very defensive as to what was going on. And like I say, I'm fine. I know there's other counties. I hear it from other counties who do not get help from their highway commissioner. And I think there's 24 or 25 counties in this pilot program. I have no problem if some of them want to sign the paper and be in the pilot program. That's not the case in Polk County.
What are you thinking? This is a new, I've seen this before.
Do you want me to talk on it now or during my report?
We got her on the floor. Let's chat her out.
Okay, the Towns Association
the Towns Association requested a WCHA that they want to take over the administration of the LRIP program, the local road improvement program for the towns, along with the League of Municipals, want to do the same. In your packet is the draft contract that the Highway Commissioner would sign, relinquishing the administration of this program for the biennium of the 23-25 LRIP program. This would include all programs in that, helping the towns with the applications and the reimbursement forms for this. Along with that is a letter from Craig Thompson in there. Polk County does get paid for the administration of this program. It's $6,500 a year for the biennium for this, so it's not a large chunk of money. But again, this was a request of the the TA on this. You know, my biggest concern during the meetings, and Steve can speak on this, is that the towns are in favor of this. You know, we have a good relationship with our towns. We help them with this program. What the end game is with the Towns Association, I'm not sure if it's to get more control over the discretionary funds that are supplementary dollars that are much higher. But again, this was the request, and according to their president for the WTA, Mike Colas, he said his team was on board with this. Obviously, he has not spoken to the whole team on this. So if the contract is in front of you now, I'm not asking for a vote at this time. I'll bring this up again next month before I either sign or don't sign this contract with that. So it's more information for you guys. And I wanted to make sure that Brad knew and what his contact was with the TA so that he has time to reach out to the members also of Polk County to look at it.
Just for research.
Couple phone calls.
Yeah, I mean, at the board of directors, it was approved. So.
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, I'm not saying it's bad or anything. We just in Polk County have an excellent working relationship. If other counties want to sign the paper and back out, more power to them, because I know there's counties that don't get help from their highway commissioners. That's not the case here, and I don't, as the towns, I don't want to give up a good thing for our towns. We know what we have now. I don't want to leave it in the hands of somebody who's 300 miles away to decide what should be done in Polk County. I want it left within Polk County. So.
Okay, Chair.
Just quickly, what's the perceived advantage for towns to adopt this, to eschew the county's support on this and adopt it? What's the sales pitch, I guess, to the towns for adopting?
I'm the wrong guy to answer because I haven't heard it. The towns, unless I've missed an email somewhere along the way, I haven't, other than a year ago or so, the Towns Association, when Mo brought it up. When I talked to Mo this morning on a town issue on culverts, it's the next thing I've heard of it. I mean, they're not calling and emailing me saying, you know, hey, what does Polk County want to do? And like I said, I fully realize there's counties that are getting no help. But that's not our case. And if I have any say in it, I'm going to say we want to stay in-house. Even if it should be, you know, moved out some places because of lack of help by the county highway commissioner. That's not the case here. And so I'm only interested in what's good for the towns of Polk County. The other counties have to do what they think is best for them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think we got the best marriage relationship we've had as long as I've been around right now. It's more important than ever. And I think the town association, the county association are finally working together better than they ever, as far as I know. And I agree with Supervisor Olson. I think this is really a priority that we keep what we've got, move forward.
between a rock and a hard place, brought forward by the towns. Brought to WCHA.
Yeah.
The WCHA voted on it, talked it over the last 3 meetings, at least. That it's been discussed, so there's obviously towns that do want it. So, and I don't know financially if it's reasonable for us to get that 6,500, if we figure all Sue's time, your time, driving out inspecting, everything we have to do, if it comes out to be a break even or a loss.
Oh, it's more than, it's a loss,
Yeah.
but it's that connection with the towns.
I wanted you to say that, I know it. So, because
I haven't read the agreement, but I would expect that it could cause some problems with towns and more so than they are experiencing, or we're not. We get some tremendous help from our county. I, as a town chairman myself, we rely on them for just about everything that we do, including we just counted several $100,000 for bridges in Polk County through the efforts of the county for the Towns Association. And that ultimately saves the county taxpayers, $500,000 or $1 million, just in one little issue. So I mean, it was something they'd probably lose out on. I haven't read the contract, but I would expect there'd be enough diversity in the two organizations that it would cause distension rather than anything possibly that's good. So I'll give you something else to put on your agenda if that's you need. He doesn't have imagination of his own, so he follows other people.
And Mr. Chair, I can see where your officers and that are coming from, and is probably always the case at some level. The officers and that, they don't really realize that, like the grassroots, like maybe Polk County and that, get some of the bigger counties. And sometimes the grassroots people aren't heard until too late. And I think this is kind of a similar. I think the grassroots people, smaller counties like us, yeah, we want to preserve what we got and keep our relationships.
okay, well, we got the information, we'll review it, we'll talk about it next meeting.
Awesome.
Administrator Netherland, you're up.
Okay, one of the main topics of the month or summer is going to be budget preparation. I know our general government director and the finance staff have been working very diligently on preparing for that. In a year that we think it's going to require some budget tightening, some belt tightening, so to speak, we're very eager to hear what comes out of the state in terms of shared revenue. I just got word that an agreement has been made and that the details of that should be coming out in the next day or two. So hopefully next week, we'll have a better feel for how much shared revenue the state will provide us, if any. So will be good news to hear. Hopefully we get more than we hoped for. On the board agenda next week, I just want to give a preliminary point. We are going to discuss the 911 address change position of the county. As you recall, a couple of years ago, we passed a resolution on how we would handle that 911 and the importance of emergency safety and that type of thing. We're going to do a refresher because I've gotten some calls from you all, some of you in this room, about, hey, what's up with this? And so we're going to have Jason and our zoning crew and the sheriff or someone of his staff will be here to answer some of your questions. But I just want to make you aware of that in case you're getting calls. We'll review what the law states, what was passed a few years ago and why we're doing it. I think that'll help us understand that situation. Trail passes and park reservations are now accessible on our website. So anybody who wants to pay for their trail pass, $5, I think it is, to ride their bikes on the trails, as well as camping at our parks, you can go on down and make those reservations. So that's good news. One other thing I'll just give you a heads up on. the past, well, since I've been here and before, we allow outside agencies or offices to rent office space from us. The rent is basically nominal. I think it's on average for a nice office, it's like $695 for a year. It seems like that might not be the wisest way to handle this. So we will look at how do we bring those folks up closer to, I mean, these are organizations that we've got good relationships and we still want to support. But we will look at starting to creep up that rent a little bit to make it more comparable or to make it more equitable across all the different agencies. So if you hear from somebody saying, hey, I hear they're going to raise our rent. Yes, we probably are, is my guess. But it won't be very much. We're just going to incrementally increase that, and we're still well below the market rate on any type of rent. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions at all for the administrator? Moving along then to Highway Commissioner Norby.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Starting out with projects. The recycling center project now is currently out to bid. We opened bids on the 29th of June. We do have a variance hearing June 20th with the town of St. Croix Falls for that project. To talk to the towns on that. The Justice Center roof is on its way and making great progress on that one. That's moving along on schedule. The museum, the doors have been delivered to Highway for the new museum doors. They look fantastic. We're just waiting to schedule to get those installed. The windows in the bell tower have been removed and are at the contractor shop being redone. At this point, the coal room project was awarded to Nick's Excavating. That should be starting here shortly this summer. County Trunk Highway P from A to 63 is completely paved and shouldered. County Road V is in Victor from US Highway 8 for 3.9 miles has been paved this week. Be shouldering that next week. We're working with the town of Clam Falls on some flood aid with the state for some replacing some culverts. The Clam Falls Dam project is on track. We did ask for a 30-day extension from July 1st to August 1st for the plan submission to DNR. But we're still on track to go out for bids this fall with a anticipated winter drawdown this winter to help with the milfoil and the kickoff of that project next spring. The government center project, we're still waiting on a couple items for switch gear and the stairwell. We're still running into balancing issues with heat and lighting. We've had some lights go out on us and trying to get those controls going in with the system that was put in. As you can see in front, we are installing a sidewalk out front to get staff safely out to the street without having to walk in the street from the government center with handicap ramps. The old school down in Balsam Lake there that the museum has, that'll be sited this summer also. Those bids came in. The conference down at the Dells was very good. Just some small notes. We got some equipment changes for rates and new classes coming out for brine making and brine capacity for trucks, which will have to be done manually in the system. They also changed the small tools from small tools being anything under 5,000 to they raise that limit to anything under 7,500. That has to be a capital equipment anymore. So that's kind of good news as cost goes up. With that, we did secure funding for 2 local bridges, a bridge in town of Blackbrook and a bridge in the town of Lincoln. And we got state funding for that as 100% of design and 100% of construction. So no local funds will be used for those 2 projects, which they'll probably come in around $600,000 each, $650,000. So that was a good win on that one to get 100% funding for those replacements. And this fall, we have several other ones I'll put in the program for rehabilitation and replacement on those. In your packet, I did include the latest state map for construction and years. If people ask you when's this highway gonna be done, when this one's gonna be done. This is the latest one out for state highways. You will notice that there is no work on state highways for major projects in 2024. Most everything else has been pushed out to 2028 to 29, so, but that's the latest on those, and that's all I have for that one. The next item on the budget is the easement for fiber on the fairgrounds, to make you aware that the Fair Society has been working with Lakeland Communication on getting fiber optic into the fairgrounds administration building. The fairgrounds is paying half that with Lakeland to split that cost, and we'll be paying the monthly charge on that. Myself just has to sign an easement to get through, put that on there, just to make you aware that we'll have fiber optic, hopefully for the fair, to the admin building, so they can have high-speed internet at the fairgrounds. Also in your packet is the 2024 fee schedule. For submission, this will be voted on probably in July. With that, you can look at it. The only really fee increase in here is on the highway side. On the cover page, it's for utility permits. Their basic permit for utility is going up from $50 to $75 to, that's one that we've lost. We're not recuperating our funds for it. So a $25 increase per permit should break us out even for the average cost of utility permits that are coming in. Otherwise, the fees of that we've established for both recycling and parks are trending where they need to trend. But these are your copies to look at as we're starting off in the budget cycle.
Congratulations on that 100% bridge fund.
Yeah, that's great for us.
Thanks.
Surprise.
Good for the whole county.
Thanks. That was very good, because those are bridges. Those are bridges that'll never meet the sufficiency rating for replacement to go below a grade of 50, because they're on local roads that don't have any ADT count, so they never drop below that, even though they can be in very bad shape. All they meet is rehabilitation process. So we've been working with WISDOT and the state and our legislators to get that that changed in the system. If the rehabilitation report says the best action is replacement, it'll be covered 100%. And I think these are the first two bridges to be underneath that program in the state to go through that. So that was a big win for us.
Great effort.
Mr. Chair, can I ask some questions on Highway 65?
He's done. Okay. I'll ask if there's any
Oh, I
questions.
see.
for him. Okay.
Okay, the next on the list is board priorities. Got Bob here too. Jacob, if you want to bring that up. I'm gonna run through these fairly fast, because you're gonna be going through these at other meetings and county board, I take it, for that. So what pertains to us? I'll skip this slide. This was the priorities that were assigned to each committee. This committee here has public safety, infrastructure, and investment in parks. Next slide. Public safety to reduce crime. These were the priorities that we had on here. And to continue with the drug-free community, exploring jail services, increase mental health, substance treatment, ensure access to care and benefits, seek grants to support increase in services, expansion of trauma and care. On the bottom, continue to prevent programming, expand the education program and increase individuals. And if any time, Sheriff, you want to jump in on these, you can. Next slide. Reduce substance abuse. Again, explore jail services, increase mental health. They're kind of the same on those. Next slide. Infrastructure. This one here, implement a comprehensive improvement plan. We have one out till 2030 right now. Increase the use of grants. One of the things on the first one, implement the projects, create sustainable long-range plan to utilize levy, federal grants, state aids, bonding to maintain a flat levy for residents, to maintain our debt service, as well as the ability to bond for roads, to keep our system up and try to get an influx in there to keep ahead of the game. Pursue grants and subsidized projects as we do with the bridge program, along with the local funding program. Grant fundings from federal and state programs with bonding not to jeopardize general transportation aids. And what that statement means is if we bond for roads, we don't want to jeopardize our 6-year average with the state, how our general transportation aids are calculated. If we put all our funding into 1 year and we have an influx of just an arbitrary number of $15 million, we want to take that $15 million and program it out over 5 years so that at the end of year 5, that 15 million doesn't drop off and tank our average, which lowers our GTA. So that's what that one means. And design, operation, and maintenance plan for all county assets, review, evaluate infrastructure to support it, and continue long-range maintenance, providing longer lifespan of infrastructure to try to be ahead of the game so we don't have large projects for our buildings, our infrastructure, and our highways and bridges. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. The parks and trails, this was to implement the comprehensive trail network plan. Complete projects within the comprehensive plan, continue to pursue grants as long as the other ones, work with all stewardship groups, the Friends, the Snowmobile Council on operations and maintenance needs, and we have a good relationship with those. We met with those prior to that. Increase marketing and promotion. You know, this is a big one here. Just a side note, my wife asked for magazines from the state on Explore Wisconsin. Where do you stay in Wisconsin? What do you do in Wisconsin? Well, where do you stay in Wisconsin? It was all the hotels and all that stuff. Polk County's not listed in that magazine as having anywhere to stay if you come to Polk County. So not even mentioned in that magazine. So that's a big one, getting up the word out of what we have here to get people here. Design, operation, and maintenance plan again, develop financial mechanisms for deferred maintenance, annual review, and evaluate support. So these are what we came up with so you guys could look at. And if you want to add to them or check them out, or if you have questions. Bob, I'm not sure this goes again to the board in June again, or does it go to the July?
That's a good question. What Bo's presenting is the second step with our priority setting. If you all recall, the first phase was our individual interviews. Subsequent to that, staff has developed these objectives and action steps to address or meet these goals. And so Mo is presenting this to you now as his governing committee to make some refinements, suggestions, and hopefully just your endorsement. Because the next phase, which is phase 3, which is in July, the county board meeting, will roll out our new poster plan. There's our old poster plan there. And so there's some refinements, obviously. Several of those are carrying over into the next 3-year set of priorities. But the objectives are changing as well. So that's basically the process.
So that's all I have unless you have questions.
Mo, now you mentioned this episode or the deal with your wife there, and not mentioning Polk County and, you know, where it should be in national advertising. Well, I remember back years ago, they didn't think anybody from the county could advertise for a private, you know, like Holiday Inn down there. And so is there still some problems with coordination between the county advertising for a private or?
Yeah, I don't think we would advertise for a private business, but we would certainly provide information to the tourism council for them to put in those types of magazines. And is this a tourism related magazine?
Yep, they came from the state. Yeah.
So, you know, each tourism council has their priorities and their targets, and they may have chosen other magazines or whatever, but that's something I can talk to William about. See if we can.
Well, it sure is a disconnect when people are searching and the right place to look, and here we have a facility like that, that's definitely in need of that particular advertising, vice versa. And we got a disconnect.
Yeah, I was just
Makes
looking at
no
them last
sense.
night, so I'll bring them in so we can get them
Yeah.
to the tourist council on why we're not mentioned in these.
Supervisor Bonaprise, if you notice under the marketing and promotion, one of the action steps is working with our existing promotional groups, whether it's the Tourism Council or the EDC, to create some synergy and work together in promoting our recreational assets.
That's where the booth needs to be in play.
That's all I have.
Question, Bob. Now, this is for us to review and make any changes we'd like to see when we come to county board then?
Yes, sir. Or now, if you have any thoughts now, I don't know if it was in the package.
Well, you know, when we start talking about improving infrastructure, you know, highways, bridges and roads, it's all about money. So, you know, we should open our minds to where or if, how we could get money, including money we already have. So,
Jake, can you bring that slide up? I believe it's the. There you go. No, back, there you go.
you know, it's great that we're gonna continue to get grants. We're gonna look for federal funding, state programs, you know, bonding, you know, not to jeopardize transportation aids. But, you know, we may need to look further outside the box if we're actually gonna accomplish this goal. You know, to get this goal done, you know, it's $1 million a year deal. Get started. I'd like to challenge Mo, because I knew we used to always come up with, what have we done? To keep going the way we are. How many years will it take to get through the whole system? And will the roads last till we get to that year? Which the answer is always no.
No.
So, you know, let's take some unpopular outside the box thinking probably to meet this goal that's being set on this committee to figure out how to do this.
Chairman Warnall, the second bullet under the CIP there, where it talks about creating a long-range plan to utilize levy, grants, aids, and bonding.
Okay.
Is that something is that relative to what you're suggesting? Is that?
Yeah, I hate to be the one to suggest what I'm gonna suggest. Sales tax. Maybe an increase in sales tax.
Statutorily, we can't.
capped at
We're
0.5%?
capped,
Okay, well then,
but we could lobby to have that changed.
I would say the additional sales tax that the county collects then, if we can't raise that amount percentage. You know, the excess that comes in, is there a way that the county board could elect to divert that money to
Well,
this program?
in our budgeting process, the board could decide to devote more money toward a particular project or venture, but that would have to come from somewhere.
Right, well, the example I'm thinking about back in my mind is we budget, we're gonna get so much sales tax.
We do budget, yes, and
And we
that's,
say we're gonna get this amount. Well, all of a sudden, you know, and I keep hearing it, oh, we're really doing good in that. Now we got a lot more money than we thought. So does the county board have the authority to divert that money into this program so that we can actually start to work on a goal?
yes, the board has the ability to direct where certain funds go. Now,
Designated for specific.
yeah, I mean, you know, in
Okay.
other words, if there was so much budgeted for this project, the board certainly has a right to say, hey, I think we'd like to increase that amount or decrease that amount.
So
Now,
in order to accomplish that, we would have to have a specific project.
Well,
a designated amount?
when I,
Could
when
we-
we put together our budget, we budget a certain amount of money. So in the past, we've been increasing how much money we are allocating to Mo's shop, right? Because we know we got to get things planned in advance. So we do that to a certain extent now. Now, you know, we look at that every year and say, do we do more? Do we do less? Yeah. So
So are you asking whether we have the authority to like create a dedicated fund?
Right.
You know, that we can continually contribute to fund this class of work, road improvement or facility improvement or whatever.
I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, basically.
Right.
Let's just take this year, for example. I don't know what we budgeted for sales tax that we're gonna take in,
4.5 million.
and what have we gotten so far?
Well, it depends on the season, right? It fluctuates, but we're trending 5% above what we got last year, which will put us a little over 5.5. So let's say it's, or 4.5. Let's say it's 4.7. So that's $200,000 extra, just as a guess. So one idea, and it'd just be an idea that could be presented to you, or you could suggest, is any excess revenue over that amount of budget could be dedicated to infrastructure or to build up the reserve fund in the highway department, or, I mean, that's a possibility.
None of it's popular, I understand, because, you know, we have a wage study coming. If the wage study shows that we need to increase wages, gotta come up with that money too.
Right.
So I mean, one of those things where there's never enough money, of course.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's what we'll deal with over here with the next several months, so that when we present it to you, we'll say, based on input from you and what we've gathered, here's what we think money should be directed, what percent where. That can always be changed, but that's something that you would do in the full board. You know, to say, if we want more money to go in this area, where's it gonna come from? You know, where are you gonna take it away from? And that's part of my job too, is to give that that first cut at that. So I think the point that's made here is that this being a priority, it's gonna be something that we're gonna look at very closely and say, how do we take the funds that are gonna be available to us and start moving in that direction, so that we have, you know, is it more money? Is it using money more efficiently? Is it redirecting money? That's kind of what we do in our budget process.
But I think you're right, Steve. It's gotta start right here at the committee,
Yeah, it's on
the grassroots.
it's on our list.
Yeah.
To come up with something, so,
Should be something else.
well, I guess we'll just keep it in the back of our mind and
Yep.
think about what we're doing. What we want to do, or what we'd like to do, or what we can't do, and what we can, and usually more so than that.
And again, it's very worthwhile, very important. And I think no surprise to you, it's discussed in every committee. What's gonna be spent where. And that's-
We don't need to lose, I mean, that's not our top priority either, so we got to keep an eye on our top priority.
It's been brought up, but I've been to these bridge meetings in Osceola. And when we have this bridge closure, our sales tax, county sales tax is gonna go down over $1 million.
It is.
That's what the prediction is, but I heard some comments.
They'll find another way, John.
Have to start putting gates on all these new bridges to throw a dime in as you drive over.
It's,
I remember them, don't you? It's funny.
it's huge. It'll be huge.
Any other questions for the highway commissioner?
Highway 65, did you still want to ask about that?
An update. I know it's a state project.
It's going along very well. I wasn't able to attend this week's construction meeting Monday on it, but it's moving along. There are periodic closures, hard closures throughout that, so there's no guarantee on. I get a lot of calls on if this section's open or this section's open. Technically, the road is closed to through traffic throughout it. But they are in the process of changing out culverts. They're on the north end right now, doing a few on there,
I see where they're doing some culverts.
but it is moving along.
Anything at all on what we call the 3 suicide hills?
No change with the state.
They're still there.
They're there.
Gotta have the kids something to play on.
On a personal note, my daughter was married at the D.D. Kennedy Park. It was clean, it was groomed. A lot of help from the county whenever she asked anything. They met her there at the time she was gonna meet. They went through everything. Just pass it along to your staff. You know how much we appreciate the work they do there.
That was Rod Polk and his staff with Mike Minky that took care of
You can include Rod too.
that. Okay. All right, thank you.
An update from Sheriff Walk then, please.
The handout I gave you is just a recent state aid form that we sent to the DNR for reimbursement. And as you know, we got approval a couple years ago to add a rec patrol officer full-time. And I just want to show the benefit of that. We submitted $105,480.92 for reimbursement. That's for ATV and snowmobile patrol for the past year. And that's the highest number we've ever submitted. So, you know, over 100,000. Now, the unfortunate part, I think the reimbursement rates are around 60%. So we'll still get, $60,000+ back. And that's the hours worked, reimbursement on the equipment. So it's really a win-win for the county that we've participated in this program. And I know next year, the reimbursement rate will go up. They've attempted to raise the snowmobile limit so that we can get we could get up to 100% back when we do this next year. And I've got a really aggressive, hardworking staff that go out there and put these hours in. And it's been wildly successful. So I'm just kind of sharing this to say thank you and that we are getting good results and we're getting our money back too. With the snowmobile, we had 51 citations and 79 written warnings last winter, and we did have 3 crashes. With ATV, we wrote 46 citations, 90 written warnings. Just something to think about. That's a lot of money. And I know that fits into kind of the board priorities that we just talked about with enhancing our trails. I'm comfortable and confident that our staff does a good job of getting out there and working and being a presence on our trail system. Keep it safe. With that, I just have a couple other things I want to update you on. We have a new canine. He graduated last week, Canine Bain. We got our picture in the paper. We went to St. Paul. And I kind of want to share this story, and it's kind of bittersweet. But yesterday at high noon, our new drug dog detected fentanyl and methamphetamine in a car in our parking lot right out the door here.
Thanks, Sheriff.
So I know I showed the video before where we bought drugs. We had somebody out here yesterday, and hats off to whatever staff member saw it, but somebody felt like there was maybe some people using illegal substances out there. And these are people coming in to collect county services and work with the county. And yet they've got their fentanyl and their meth in their car. And our dog made the hit on the car and we seized the fentanyl and meth. So right out underneath our noses again, this is going on. And I think that shows the level of craziness in this world we're in.
And I will say this, Sheriff, watching it from the window, the professionalism of the deputies was remarkable. I mean, you arrested somebody, you cuffed them, they said goodbye to each other, they tested other people. The guy, I could see the body language saying, I'm clean, I'm clean. They tested him. And he was, the deputy shook his hand and the kid was so proud. He just thought, I passed my test. And they did a great job with a group of, I don't know, 7 or 8 people.
Right. And, you know, this is the problem we face, that it's broad daylight at the government center. You know, so there's a problem. Our criminal justice system has a problem. You know, the dog is a great tool. It's another tool. I always feel like we do our jobs. We detect the problem, we find the problem, we arrest the problem. And then that's the area that needs the big focus. And there's more ways. You know, the good thing is when we arrest somebody, they get in the system and we get those options out there for them. So, you know, we have to continue to attack the front, but we have to attack the back of this problem too. And that's all hands on deck. So I don't envy your positions having to work with all the resources to try to figure this out.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So knowing that there was fentanyl, do you have to take extra precautions when you're looking for it and
Absolutely.
looking in their pockets? I would even think like,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's, and this is nothing new for us. It's a daily occurrence. And that's walking in your building. Could have easily been in their pockets when they came in. Now, typically they like to leave everything in the car when they come in, but you know, these people aren't thinking rationally either. These people are not the good people you want in here. All right, we are involved, as you heard, in investigating the officer-involved shooting in St. Croix County. I can't comment on anything, but I can just tell you that there's a lot of work to that. So our staff is working tirelessly to investigate that incident. We also had a fatality over Memorial Weekend. It was a car that was partially submerged by Horse Lake. And, you know, hats off to the fire department, allied fire and first responders, and the deputies who waded in the water and pulled that individual out and used life-saving measures and got the person breathing again. However, had been under long enough that once the person was eventually removed from life support, they did pass on. So obviously condolences to the Evenson family for their loss. But that's the amazing work that our volunteer firemen and first responders and police do that largely goes unnoticed in our society. So I just like to talk about that. Staffing is a constant hurdle. You know, we're in a time when more than ever, we need law enforcement. I mean, like I say, it's out the door and it's hard to fill the positions. We're going to talk about that later today in dispatch. How many more calls are coming into dispatch? And yet for 20 years, we got the same staff. Barron County just added, I think, 4 deputies, and St. Croix County is going to add 5 new deputies. This is an impact and it's expensive. So I think the big discussion, and we're coming up to budget time, is, you know, what does it take to keep our society safe? And how do we maintain the level of service we're used to seeing and getting? Because we're stretched. I mean, we are really stretched. And hats off to that staff. I've got guys that come out and work 24 hours straight sometimes. When we get a homicide, when we get a big case that we have to work, they come out and work till the job is done. And sometimes that's 24 hours straight. Today, as soon as this meeting is over, I'm going to be driving to Madison because the Chief Deputy, Don Burrows, is graduating tomorrow from his Department of Justice Command College course. And that's been a year-long process for him. So I'm excited to go down there and see him get his graduation certificate. So I'll be there to support Don in that role. So that's exciting. And maybe we'll talk next month more about that, what that all encompassed. I'll let Don talk about what he learned in that program. And that's all I really have. I think on that priority, Don Burrows and I sat down and we added a few things, and I don't know if it was on the slide or not, but I guess next time we'll make sure that we have whatever we've added to those priorities, some bullet points, we'll make sure that everybody's up to speed with, because we like to be involved in that too. And it is, public safety is a big part of every world. So I'm happy to be a resource and happy to share our visions as well. So any questions?
I just have a comment. We had a meeting yesterday, environmental services, and I got through the meeting, talked to Melvin for a minute, and I'm walking across the parking lot. And I'm really embarrassing myself is what I'm doing, because I walk by these 3 younger people and they look suspicious, but what do I know? And they opened up the trunk and were looking in there, and I got in my truck and I'm leaving. And yet I said, it can't be anything
what what we're thinking. And I go home, But so I'm glad you got them, but I'm embarrassed because I just drove away.
Well, and like I say, it's, when they're doing it in the government center lot, we've got a big crisis, and it's only getting worse with the amount of fentanyl in the last month that's come across the border. We've guaranteed ourselves a lot of work to be done. We will work tirelessly here, but it's here. Like she said, it's very dangerous. We have to have multiple officers on scene now. Some just to watch what the others are doing. So if they come in contact with it, we're there to protect those officers. So, it is getting exponentially more difficult to do law enforcement and more dangerous, as we've seen in the surrounding communities.
There what the drowning, and I guess it's in the Taylor Falls situation. But the young man from Luck, I believe, that fell off the rock, was he the body that they found?
I believe I saw that on a press release. Yes.
Well, that one's,
That was handled by Chisago.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have any non-gun bearing deputies?
I have one person who's a special deputy who did not want it. He helps us with cold case investigations. He's a former prosecutor, so I have deputized him, but he doesn't carry a gun. But that's his choice, and he's mostly using his IDs to get into other police departments to go dig up on some of these cold cases.
How's he doing?
Fantastic.
I just think back,
Challenge.
we need to register a car in Cushing in the 60s, 50s, 60s. Louis Baker was a non-gun bearing deputy. So he could do registrations and all the stuff, check numbers like they used to have and all that stuff.
Yep.
I was just curious.
I have deputized a few citizens that assist with certain trainings and that throughout the county. I've done some special deputizations, absolutely. So, but like I say, it's hard to find somebody to come and take the pay and the car and which is what I deem a pretty darn good career. And it's hard to fill those shoes right now, which is baffling to me. So I'm glad we're in the process of doing a wage study. I heard that Chisago County is hiring and they're offering $40 an hour and a $7,000 sign-on bonus. So that's detrimental.
Is there an age limit?
I potentially lead,
Is there an age limit? Is that what you said?
like I say,
Is there an age?
that could be what we're up against. So we'll be collecting dust on some of our equipment if that's the case. So we have to be competitive or we're not gonna have law enforcement if this trend continues. It's a downward spiral. And it's not just us, it's fire department, ambulance, it's all the community.
It's everywhere.
Most struggles to fill the highway shop trucks, and that used to be wait in line to get a chance for that.
Yeah. I hired a guy yesterday at Township, but it's rare.
Well, probably within 2 years, it'll even go on. That's the puzzle piece. I wish I could get longevity employees, that I could find those, like me, I've been here 28 years. But that's rare today to see anybody past 5. So when we get those, we're happy. They're great employees. I'm very pleased. I'm blessed. I have a great staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Supervisor Rowdy, update on the UTV, ATV.
Just a quick update on the trails. Most of the discussion today was centered around maintenance and what needs to be done. And out in Sterling, is it Mark Johnson or what's his, I can't remember his last name. Okay, it's Mark. It's a Mark that I met that Jay will probably meet because he gave me a ride around the whole trail. But they took 3 big not truck tires, but like loader tires and bolted them together. And that's how they groom the trail. He tows that behind. And then when he goes down the town road, he can lift it up with the 3-point and just the back touches. So they can get back to the trail.
improvise.
Huh?
Improvise.
Yes, but it works really well.
Yeah.
And he he said that on his list is he does the 6 mile, well, 7 mile loop once a week. And he does the whole trail every other week. So it needs to be done at a cleanup because the county was out and took their dozer and made the trail wider. So when they're gonna be done, I don't remember the date, but then they're gonna try and get it moved right after. So that's on the list. And then there was a long discussion on the big project is the Gandy Dancer Trail, putting in signs and posts. That's a big project and they've got it laid out. And the club's gonna do part and then the county keeps an eye on what's going on and gets the posts. They have to do a section at a time because that's a long ways to get signs in. And what they need to upgrade them because they have to be a larger size on the stop signs. So it needs to be changed and fixed and the height has to be worked on. Can't be below 42 inches and some of them are. Right now, the signs go clear down almost to the ground, most said. So that's what they're working on.
I got some calls last week on people commenting on question going on the Gandy Dancer Trail.
For ATVs?
No.
Equestrian, yeah, I got a few too. I was gonna ask you about that.
As of yesterday at Environmental Services, Bob could fill in too. It's still being worked on. Because what would happen, the costs that came in, I didn't bring those boulders, but the cost that came in to put them on either a newly created trail was out of sight. And then if they do some on the edge of the widening, then it got very costly too. So the discussion is whether they'll open the master plan and put them dual use on the trail. And we asked yesterday if they open the master plan, if we could look into ATVs, UTVs on the trail. So it'd be a multi-use trail.
It sounds like that might happen, doesn't it?
Well, I hope so.
Well, isn't that connected up with the Ice Age Trail?
Yes.
We're kind
Yes,
of
from
stuck with that.
Centuria to Frederick is Ice Age Trail,
Centuria to Frederick.
right on
That's-
again.
That's, yeah,
So the ATVs, UTVs wouldn't be able to be in that section.
right.
And the equestrians are they're asking for use on the trail, but they don't necessarily want to go from St. Croix Falls to Grantsburg. They just want small sections because then they can ride and come back and get back in their trailer and go home.
Gandy doesn't really have a lot of use in the summertime right now.
I don't believe so. No.
Those are people I don't comment. I said I go to a meeting and look at the agenda.
So currently, there is no equestrian activity on the trail.
No,
Okay.
President, no.
And you're exploring a parallel path, but that sounds cost prohibitive. And so now you're expanding, at least in some sections, opening it up to multi-use.
It says correctly, Bob.
Right, and if you don't mind, I can add in June at the county board meeting here shortly, the 20th. We'll be given a formal presentation on the alternatives that the Environmental Services Committee is recommending. And one of them is adding equestrians, not to the entire corridor, but to part of the corridor. So you'll receive all that information as well as costs, implementation, as well as O&M costs in the event the county board would like to add that new user group.
Thanks.
Is there any way to track these user groups? I mean, could we put up cameras? So we know how many people bike, we know how many people walk, we know how many people horseback ride, we know how many people. So we could actually come up with actual numbers
We did it.
because people say, they don't use, that group don't use it anymore. But that's the only group I see on some trails, so I don't know.
And Chairman Warndall, we did measure user groups on the Gandy. It's a little old. It was back in 2009. So subsequent to that, we haven't had trail cameras up. I know, talking to Rod, that they have added some cameras on the Gandy, but they haven't quantified or gathered, that data yet. I think there's a need to do that in all our recreational trails, just to measure not only the usage, but also potentially the economic impact.
Yeah.
It's a good point, and it would help drive decision-making, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the accurate count. Who's using it? Of course, you could always have the group that says, make sure you go past that camera 25 times today,
Right. It's the
but they don't have to know the camera's there.
guy wearing the
Jump on the
same clothes keeps
I mean,
going.
I get my picture taken 25 times a day at my house. That's all that comes across, but it just,
That is a tricky part of the trail counters we have right now. They have, you set them up, but then they have a target, they go across, and then whoever comes down the trail breaks that beam to count that in there. But it's very hard to.
Who is it? Is it, what user group is it?
Right, it just, there's something past it, whether it was a raccoon or it was a biker or something like that, but then they see that target. It's hard to disguise that. Again, just a rough count.
we have no idea what kind of impact we're putting on the county. I don't want to, John's always talking about sales tax. We don't know what group we should support for sales tax for that. I mean, unless we know how many of them are using it. And we can expand in that area and make it better for, different groups,
Good point.
but I don't know. I don't know how you.
Chairman, I know maybe can help as a sheriff. There's something I've heard at one meeting or other. Like, you can't have trail cams on there because of you were the only ones that could put them up as the sheriff's department. I don't know, I just thought something that I was in on the discussion, but
I'm not aware of anything, it's a public space.
just have to look into it more, Steve.
I think anybody could put them anyplace without breaking a law, couldn't you?
I don't know, I was told that the club club was told they couldn't put them on this tower.
Private,
I suppose
private person couldn't put them up.
I think as a study, you would certainly well be within your rights to put it up to monitor activity on the trail. If we had somebody defacing the benches or something, we would put trail cams out to try to catch who's ever doing it. So I think it's,
Yeah, the private person, like our clubs couldn't put it up. The county's got to do it, not us. That's a county thing only, not the private, not a club. No, because we were trying to figure out the stop signs and the signs that were being stolen. So we were trying to figure that out. So, but a private owner cannot put it out. Well, the county can.
There was something in that discussion.
Yeah, we have a corporate council, put them up. We can't do you wrong.
I have no idea. I presume,
Never mind.
they make cameras so tiny and so inconspicuous.
they're putting them on the highways now. And we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. The flock cameras that watch vehicles.
Sure.
And I,
No different.
yeah, we've talked to consultants about, when we talk about the Stour, about not only putting up cameras, but where do you put them? When do you put them? How do you move them? Because they do get played, right?
Of course.
People go out there and if they find them, if they don't steal them, then they might recruit their group. And so it takes a little thought to get some accurate data. And if anybody sticks a camera up there, then everybody's gonna stick their camera up there and say, well, here's the data we got, It does take a little planning, a little effort, and we've done that on the Stour, I know, at times, correct?
Well, and if people know that there are cameras out there, they're gonna recruit people to go.
Right. We do have economic data. Now, the economic data may not apply to our specific trails, but don't we have economic data that says these user groups, on average, a person generates this amount or spends this much on a given day. So we have looked at that, and that was used in our Stour master plan.
No judge report.
Huh?
No judge report. Judge decision.
Oh, no.
Okay. Update from CJCC.
Mr. Chair, I could provide that today.
Thank you.
We currently have 10 treatment court participants, 12 in the intoxicated driver program. We're recruiting for first-time offender and substance diversion, no current participants in that. There's a case manager was hired in May. That's the report I've got. I'll entertain any questions.
You don't have a graduation coming up then? You don't have anybody in the program right now, or?
There are a couple that are moving up to stage 4, so we anticipate some graduations soon, but we have none planned at the moment, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for him? And now we have review dispatch 911 in Wisconsin. Who's got that job?
Jill and I are gonna talk about that.
Okay.
I've got fun numbers.
Thank you.
I haven't been here in a long time. Let's see numbers. You guys want to see numbers?
We can share.
I made 15 copies. Would you like your own
Sure.
numbers? Yeah.
So interestingly enough, technology can be embraced, but it can be a headache. We're seeing a big increase in 911 hang-up calls because of certain brands of cell phones have some flaws. And we're getting a lot of unwanted nuisance 911 calls, which can tie up our system. And, you know, earlier in the year, we put a press release out about that. We actually just hijacked another county's press release on it, but Apple phones for a while had a crash feature. So if you're riding in your UTV and it's rattling in the cup, that was detecting crash and alerting 911. So we were getting a lot of nuisance calls with those. Now the Android phone, the newest Android phone, has a similar problem where it's dialing 911 all the time. So Jill Stoffel, if you don't know, is our dispatch communications supervisor. And she's got a few talking points on this.
So I'll just continue with that. Yes, the Android phones did a release, I think it was mid-April, and 911 hang-up calls just exploded. They've done news reports on all the major channels out of the cities. I don't know if you've seen any of those. Several surrounding counties have done little infomercials that they're releasing on Facebook. So I ran our numbers just in case you had seen those, just to see the increase that we've had. I'm sure you guys get a lot of numbers, so I wanted to do something that I thought would be pretty easy to see, just to show the increase in call volume that our dispatch center has been dealing with from last year to this year. So just to make sure I was comparing apples to apples, I wanted to show you that just calls for service. This first page is last year, is 2022. And then the second page is 2023. So at this point, last year, we were at 16,000 calls for service. We use a lot of terminology that you may not be familiar with. A call for service is something that a dispatcher creates. It's basically an event. It can be an event that is very simple that maybe one officer goes to, and it also could be an event that requires multiple deputies, multiple ambulances, fire, first responder. It could be a huge event, and it's still just one call for service. So just to give you an idea of what that number reflects. So at this point last year, we were at 16,000. At this point this year, we're at over 17,000. So we're at a 900 call for service increase, comparing same time frame.
That's a pretty good increase, actually.
Pretty nice increase, yeah. That's just one unit of measure to give you an idea of the increase pace in dispatch. Those are the calls that we dispatch out to the different services that we utilize. Another unit of measure for us is our phone traffic. We handle all the 911 and non-emergency calls for service that come into the Sheriff's Department. Last year in April, we had 5,400. Well, you can read them. I don't need to read all the numbers to you, but I've compared the incoming phone calls for April and May of last year. And then if you turn the page to the second one, April and May of this year, we're at, for April, we're up 2,300 incoming phone calls. And for May, we're up over 1,400 incoming phone calls into our comm center. So the increase is significant. The situation that Sheriff Walk was talking about with the 911 hang-up calls, last year for a 2-month period in April and May, we had 502 911 hang-up phone calls that were processed by our dispatch center. This year, for the same time period, we had 1,289. So we're up 787 911 hang-ups. A 911 hang-up means that call came into our center and we had to process it. We had to either call that person back, make contact, make sure through a question and, maybe using yes or no questions to make sure that the person was able to indicate to us that they were okay and they didn't need our assistance. Or it may have resulted in a call for service where we had to send a deputy to the location to make sure that they were okay. So these can be a huge drain on our resources.
On behalf of my wife and me, apologize.
I think just about everybody has, it really is, most people are just unaware. They've put so many of these new features on phones, people are just unaware. So it's going to take a lot of public education, but I just wanted this committee especially to be just aware of the increase and the incredible resource killer that this is for
So the
us.
problem is coming with the Android.
It's all of them, John. All the different phones have everything from automatic crash notification. The amount of phone calls that we got over ski season, every single person that had an Apple phone in their pocket when they were downhill skiing at Trollhagen, we would literally get 20 or 30 a shift. And it was just somebody skiing. So it's not just one.
I'm sorry.
There were so many. Snowmobiling, downhill skiing, now on the lakes, it's nonstop.
So it's just a phone call, but nothing there.
We can't make
So if there was
contact.
an actual emergency, you wouldn't know because there's just too many.
We can hear activity. It's an open line. Yeah.
And the thing is,
Mhm.
we can't just ignore it because it could be a true emergency. So we put a lot of time into determining,
Mhm.
well, is this an Apple stupid call or is it somebody that just collapsed and this is their last attempt at saving their lives,
Yeah.
so it's draining.
It is.
This ain't no Apple, is it? I hate these things.
We're developing a strong feeling for them also, but they also, there are some features that are very important, but just so that you're aware. So something, I just wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of the call volume and the increase. And it's not just the 911 hangups. There's a significant increase in call volume.
So if you go back 20 years, the only calls we had were from landlines. Cell phones weren't such a big deal and they were simple. And now you talk about on a weekend, if our population is 100,000 traveling through this county, we're inundated with calls. Everybody can call 911 now. In the traffic, half of the 911 calls are people road raging and they're mad at the car in front, so they call that in. There's a reckless driver. The cell phone has put a lot of strain on our communications division because everybody has one.
Well, I have an example that I can give you. I'm dabbling in a couple different points that I wanted to make to this committee today. In 2000, we split our jail and dispatch divisions. And at that time, it was determined that we needed 11 full-time dispatchers to handle the workload. That is where we stand today. And a lot has changed in 23 years. When we would have a bad traffic crash on Highway 8, 2 or 3 people might take the time to stop and run into a local business to call 911 to tell us there was a bad crash. Now, just to offer one example, we had a really serious car crash on Highway 8 several years ago by the Walmart lights. We had 24 911 calls in about a minute and a half. I have the same staff, same resources, and we had to get through 24 911 calls. You can't just assume that those are all for the same crash. We have 940 square miles that we're covering. There could have been a heart attack in Frederick in the middle of that. There could have been another car accident somewhere else in the county. So we legitimately have to, as quickly as possible, go through and screen all those calls to make sure that it's the same crash and that there might not be more relevant information, giving us maybe data to make our responders safer. Maybe they're reporting something in the vehicle that we didn't know from the first few callers. We have to screen them that quickly. So it's a whole different job than it was in 2000 when we were given 11 dispatchers. Just to start the topic.
That's 11 on 3 shifts.
24 hours a day.
You're amazing.
It's changed. And so about 5 years ago, I started sounding the alarm that we were not keeping up and we needed more than 11 dispatchers to handle this workload. I want to give you an example of what happened to us last summer. Last June, I was down 1 position and we were actively recruiting for it. We had somebody that we had hired that just didn't make it through training. And so we were still trying to hire. And we had an emergency medical situation with one of our dispatchers and she needed to be out for a month. At the same time, one of our new hires resigned unexpectedly to move 2 counties away and didn't want to commute back to here. We didn't know that was coming. One of our frontline supervisor was pregnant at the time and she was due to start her maternity leave in July. So we were just hoping to God that baby didn't come early. And then right after that, our newest dispatcher that we had just hired said, I didn't sign up for this if we're going to go on 12-hour shifts. So I guess I'm out of here too. We were down to 7 in a matter of 30 days. It takes us about 3 months to get through a hiring process and it takes 5 months to train a dispatcher to be able to sit in the second chair. So there's no short, quick fix for this. So the 7 dispatchers that we had that had all been there for over 8 years, up to 25 years, we have some that are that dedicated. They got no vacation time for almost 6 months. They were maxed on their vacation time. I literally filled about 4 PTO days a month for over 6 months. They stuck it out and we literally just filled our 11th position, started this last weekend, started in training. So it'll be several months, but that's how long it takes us to right the ship when we lose some people. So when the sheriff is asking for more positions for dispatch, we've been asking for a while, but it took us a long time to ask. So it's literally been 23 years since we asked for a position. So
You're supposed to retire, aren't you?
I would like to. Yeah, that would be nice if at some point in the next few years we could make that happen. But there's a lot of information to pass on, and it would be nice to have a supervisor in there that I would like this to. Great concern for the responders and for the dispatchers, and it would be great to have some time to pass this information on and have a nice smooth transition. But we got to get some people in there. So we have an incredibly dedicated group. It'd be nice if they could have a schedule that would allow for some weekends off once in a while. The schedule they currently have, they don't get weekends off for it's about every 4 months. That's a tough sell in this job market when people are working from home and they have, they're really looking for, this next generation is really looking for that that home life balance that law enforcement is pretty challenged to offer some of the time. So we can have a little depth so that they could get their PTO filled once in a while and some weekends off once in a while. That would really be helpful. Just a little plug there for when we're making that request for our positions. But on to some really fun things that are happening in dispatch, some of the projects that we've been working on this year. I don't know, I wasn't here when this information was shared with you, so I think you were made aware of the fact that we added a spur, an additional tower site last fall. We were having some coverage issues in the St. Croix Falls area, so we coordinated with Chisago County, Minnesota, and added a spur to our system in Taylor's Falls on the water tower. I think you guys all knew that. One of the things that we were kind of holding our breath on is when the leaves came out, whether or not we were going to have some, if it was going to be a little diminished in our coverage, and the leaves came out and it's working phenomenally well. So I think that project is done. We can say that that is a success and that worked well. So we were a little bit worried about the foliage. We've recently done a full upgrade to our records management software for the Sheriff's Department, and that went over very well just last month. We are in the process of upgrading our microwave system. That's a system we put in 2007. All of the equipment was out of support, antiquated, needed to be updated. The county board approved that project last year, and we were about halfway through. And I've always had an incredibly interesting job where I have to learn new things that I didn't expect to be involved in. And at one point, about halfway through the process, they called and said, the tower crew is leaving. There is an osprey that has built a nest, and we can't climb the tower, and we're out of here until that bird's moved. So we had to research that. Apparently, there is an avoidance period from April 1st through August 15th. And if there is a nest with eggs or babies, you have to stay within, can't go within 330 feet of the nest. So we flew a drone over. Yep, she wasn't bothered by that at all. There's a nest, there are babies. She was unfazed, so we had to completely stop our project. I started researching it, and I think some of you were on the board when we did our original radio project. And you know that Dairyland Power has been a phenomenal partner with Polk County. We've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars partnering with them. I looked at Dairyland Power's website, and I saw that they had an osprey cam on one of their on their Ladysmith location. And so I contacted my contact there, and I said, hey, I said, we have a really nice osprey here. Would you like another cam where maybe you could move her and then video her? And that might be a great, they do a lot of community projects. And he chuckled and he said, we probably would be in for another community project. I was thinking about how we get this paid for. And so long story short, the chief deputy worked with, I don't know if it was the DNR or the DNR, and he was able to obtain a permit because this really is quite an emergency for us. The project was left in a state where we're half old microwave, half new microwave. The reason that that's an emergency is our microwave system is on a ring, which I have going both directions. So there's redundancy. We have an A ring and a B ring. The project stopping halfway means we have two spurs. They don't go both directions. So if we have a break in the worst possible location, I can actually lose 4 sites down from that. We're pretty vulnerable. With that information, the chief deputy was able to get the permit. So we now have a permit to move said osprey. Dairyland Power is going to come in and help us put in a platform and a pole so she's comfortable. And so she would like that environment better than our tower, is the hope. So you guys don't.
So a bird is held up, a bird has held up her project and there's nothing we can do. There's regulations on how we proceed. So those are the X factors we don't always think of.
And that was pretty.
For the birds.
But so that was pretty, I thought that was pretty fun. We're almost done upgrading our alarm system so that we'll start to get emails when we have problems with our radio system. Up to this point, it's required us being responsive to a failure. So now we're going to be more proactive. We'll know when we're having problems with our system. So that's kind of a big deal. Next Gen 911, I think you guys have been hearing about that for a long time. The state of Wisconsin is finally moving forward with the infrastructure on that. The state has been pushing out or opening up grant funding. I was pretty aggressive in pursuing that grant funding. We did get all of the money that I asked for. They were requiring an 80-20 match. I believe that the chief deputy came and asked for that funding. I wasn't part of that conversation, so I'm assuming that most of you know about that. I think we got about 250,000. The county has approved the other about 60. That project is moving forward pretty quickly.
Yeah, more technology. So several villages are putting these flock cameras in, which we talked about watching the trails. These watch the highways, and it's pretty sophisticated. If we added Jay Luke's plate in there and Jay drove through that town, it would alert that his car just went through. So it's a way to find missing people, alert for certain things. So we're starting to see that come into our county, which does create some issues for dispatch because it's linked to, it has to be linked so that they get the alert and can pass the information on. So it's keeping up with technology is a challenge always. And I think there's good intentions with it. And I think it's a positive thing, but it does come with a cost of keeping up.
They've all shared their access with us. So several surrounding counties have it. Several police departments within Polk County are getting it. And they're wanting to put it all in our dispatch center. So when any vehicle that is entered as stolen or wanted, involved in a crime, when it drives through these cameras, it will automatically notify our dispatch center so that we can broadcast it immediately and tell them that this wanted vehicle just went through X camera minutes ago westbound.
Well, if a community is incorporating that thing, it goes to you anyway.
Yep.
You're the only one that's available.
Right.
Lots of big things happening in dispatch, always. And we had 911 go down the other night and the technician indicated that the line was underwater and something was chewing on it. And I thought, first a bird, now
Huh.
I think that's enough good information
I
for
think
today.
that's it. Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions at all?
Lots of them, but it'll take a while before you work a lot of things out before the questions could possibly be answered. You know, that's challenging. It's confusing. That's why it's so challenging. You know, it's hard to explain. It's like your addressing systems and things that are incorporated in your responsibilities. And challenging as hell to try to explain that to a individual that's got to change his driver's license address.
That's another project that has taken up a lot of my time. I recently met with a lot of the fire chiefs.
Yep.
To let them know about the project that Bob's department is working on and why it is so important to us to make sure that they were aware that there have been potentially significant changes in their response areas. I also added a layer on our mapping in dispatch so that the dispatchers would be able to tell them what the historical road name was in conjunction with the new road name so that we're able to offer them assistance if there are problems in responding during this implementation time. So we're trying to work with them on that project too.
It's changing. Yep. Good job, though.
And I saw the other day, they're right by McDonald's. I happened by right away there. I know there was at least 3 people talking to dispatch, you know, at the same time. So does the dispatcher have the authority to say, I'm currently talking to somebody and keep that person on the line? I'm currently talking, because I took the phone and talked to dispatch myself. Just told them, you know, I'm a first responder, I'm here, you know. One person probably don't need an ambulance, one does.
They try to screen to get honestly, to get the best party they can. Either the person that has the most information, the person that's closest to the scene, the person that has the highest quality data. But we are now at the point where I'm seeing things I've never seen before. We're actually putting 911 callers on hold that are independent calls.
Sure. Makes sense. Okay, thank you very much.
Neil said to say hello again. Every time we go to school down there, we ran into him. I said, say hello to Jill.
He's a great guy.
Quite a bird.
Yeah, he's quite a guy.
Yes, he is.
Discussion possible action regarding resolution 27-3. Supporting the reinstitution court program. Who's got that?
So it looks like Brad has left. That's one that Brad got up and talked a little bit about. And he's been in discussions with Malia and myself for a few months on this. And I think he stated it well. He just wants a lobbying resolution to encourage our judges and our system to ensure that restitution is considered and is applied.
I have a question in reference to that. maybe the sheriff can answer. Is there, or council, is there a statute yet on the books that reimburse people for losses due to criminal actions?
No, the court has the authority to award restitution in criminal cases and order the defendant to pay.
Correct, but I'm talking about another fund that's available statutorily for victims of crime to be reimbursed for some of their losses.
From taxpayers?
Yes,
Not that I'm aware of.
there used to be.
I don't deal with a lot of that end of it. I would encourage maybe perhaps some staff at the DA's office to come in and talk about how that works, because I don't have those answers for you.
There was the statute on. at
I know
one
there's
time.
the Crime Victims' Rights Board, and they are entitled to certain things once they become identified as a victim. I can certainly do some research. Not that I'm aware of, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Not that I'm adverse to this resolution. I think reimbursements is fine if you can collect it. I don't know.
The impetus for this particular resolution came about because there's a glitch. Right now, when a defendant is placed on probation and there's been a restitution order, let's say, there was a theft and the value of the property was $2,000 and the court orders restitution as a condition of probation. Theoretically, our probation officers in Wisconsin have the authority to monitor compliance with that probation condition. There's a hiccup when it's a Minnesota resident or any other state for that matter, and Minnesota then does the supervision of probation. They don't have the authority to monitor or collect restitution on the Wisconsin cases. And so what Judge Nordstrand in St. Croix County, excuse me, has started to do, as well as Judge Tolan here, having follow-up restitution hearings, requiring that person to come back in front of the court. And I think Nordstrand, who's been doing it a little bit longer, has had some success because it's just one more layer of responsibility to the court.
And how about the sentencing? If you put you on probation in lieu of a jail time, and you also have a restitution that's not, and a lot of them don't have jobs, a number of different reasons. They can never pay that off. Do they continue it's a continual sentence saying he never gets off probation?
Right, our probation officers do not tend to revoke probation or sign off on them completing probation simply because they did not pay restitution. So we don't have a debtor's prison, debtor's court.
Yeah, that was eliminated a few years ago.
So you're right. I mean, vast majority of the crimes where restitution is ordered are folks who are, have substance abuse or some other issue and they're indigent and are unable to.
With this. Oh,
All this is doing is encouraging the district attorney's office and the courts to hold hearings to see if somebody's paid restitution. The court doesn't have the authority to put them back in jail if they're not paying. So it's not as if there's teeth here because they're on probation and the probation officer is the one who can.
but he's established a debt. Can he revert to civil court for
Civil
judgment?
judgment can be obtained.
Okay. All right.
I did have conversations with both judges. Judge Tolan says he's already doing this. Judge Anderson feels the county board would be overstepping because, this is the legislative branch. They're the judicial, I think it could create some animosity with the courts.
But this is really just a sense of the board.
Yep.
I mean, there's no enforcement, there's no,
Right.
it's just great, keep doing it.
A feel-good resolution.
A lot of them.
If you agree with it. Not feel good if you don't,
You know, the other thing is judicial time.
right?
You know, we have a very high caseload for the number of judges. We have the same population as Barron County, but only 2 judges. And they have 3. And they're already burdened, arguably. A lot of the criminal defense attorneys are substituting on Judge Tolan because he tends to be harsher. So most of the criminal cases end up, I shouldn't say most, a larger share of the criminal cases end up in front of Anderson. Or an out-of-county judge. So
Yeah,
this would be one more added thing to put on their calendars. And I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying there could be some pushback, certainly from one of the judges, for even suggesting that we want to encourage and support. But it is frustrating for defendants when someone is ordered to repay them and they don't get repaid.
For the victims, right?
In all my years,
Sorry, the victim.
I've never been paid for a sign that somebody's ruined when they got caught. Have you, Mo? No, I mean, they order them to pay for the sign, but you don't get nothing. You know, the guy steals the pumpkin money from the kids down there in Milltown, gets caught with the money box in his vehicle, and then there's no restitution.
Right.
You know, so I mean, I would think would support trying to get that.
yeah.
So what's the feel? Are we gonna forward it on to, does this go to a committee or does it go to the county board?
This is at your, this
This
is
is the
the committee.
So we have to decide if we're gonna forward this to the county board for
I'll
action.
make a motion that we forward this resolution to the county board for consideration to hopefully influence the legislators to consider our wishes. Whatever they may be.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded, forward this to the county board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will vote on that resolution at the county board meeting by roll call. Just wanted to warn you that. Not everybody may agree.
So it's with a neutral recommendation from this committee, right?
Correct.
No, why would it be neutral? It'd be positive if we all agreed unanimous, didn't we?
We agreed to send it on, but it's gonna be, when it gets to the county board, they're gonna have to vote on it. Some of those-
Yeah, but it was a unanimous, Rick.
I don't think so.
No, it's only to move it.
It's only to
not,
move
That
it.
was on the
It's not in
motion.
support.
Wasn't the motion.
It was a
just-
roll call.
So we're just moving it forward. We don't, even though we all voted yes, we're voting yes to move it to county board.
Let the county board decide.
We'll have a roll call at the county board. Yeah. All right.
Okay, work plan review. I see we got the jail tour in July. Huh? Have a date for that? Didn't we move some dates around? Or?
Usually the same deal as that committee, isn't it?
And we moved the July meeting because it fell on the 4th of July. So
Oh, that's
I
right.
believe your meeting is going to be starting at noon on the 7th. Right?
Right, we usually hold it in the community room.
Because then you get jail food and a tour.
6th of July, is it?
7th,
7th?
right?
Let me check the
6th,
calendar.
7th. Whatever that Thursday is.
4th is on Tuesday, isn't it?
I don't know. You can't trust a lawyer's math or calendaring.
7th.
The 6th, it was the
July
moved to
6th.
Thursday, the 6th.
Thursday, the 6th.
Of July, yeah.
All right.
Would you like to see as many county boards members there for the tours?
I would say, yeah, that could be extended to other county board members if they want to come see it.
So in June, we'll make sure we extend that invite to them.
Yes, and then
Need
if
a
like
head count.
a head count a week prior, I can make meal arrangements.
Okay. Anything else for the work plan? Before we adjourn, I just have a couple comments from the convention this week. The governor's proposing to take all the sales tax. I assume that means all the state sales tax and not the county's portion on the sale of any electric car and putting it into transportation. Reason for that thinking is an electric car runs up and down the road, doesn't pay any gas tax. You know, they're trying to figure out a way to get something for roads out of an electric car. So that was their first stab at it. The second stab sounds like it's gonna be auto parts. So all the sales tax from auto parts in the state would start going toward transportation. So they're starting to move sales tax around to try and improve highways.
Designated for that purpose.
That's what's gonna be designated for. It has to be used for that. So just some information on electric cars.
That was good.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn that.
I shall move.
Second.
Made and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.